I'm delighted to welcome today Rachel Goth, who is a mindset coach for artists and makers. Welcome, Rachel.
Thanks, Elaine. It's great to be here.
What do you mean by, we know what an artist is, and there's various different types of artists, which I'm sure we'll go into, but what do you mean by makers?
Well, it's including people that might not see themselves yet as an artist because it can feel like a big title to some people. So people that maybe are making things with their hands, things that traditionally aren't like high art, but just being very inclusive, really, of anybody who's using their artistic skills for their business.
Okay, so somebody who may be doing some kind of hobby, craft sort of hobby at home, maybe as just as a hobby, potentially could turn it into a business.
Yeah, because there's people doing jewelry making, people making pottery, making all kinds of things at home that they might not be ready to take on that label yet of artist because they're in that transition period, from hobby to business.
Right, okay, I get it. So, how did you get into doing this? I mean, it's quite specific, isn't it? Mindset coach for artists and makers. It's very specific.
Yeah, well, what it is was it goes back to my own journey because way back I was a graphic designer and I did that for a number of years and have my own path to get to that because my parents were like, no to going to art school. They're like, oh, that's a waste of time, waste of money. And my teachers were like, oh, you want to do something sensible. So I took the sensible route, got the degree, and then went straight into a market research company and was just so unhappy. Really didn't enjoy it at all. So I ended up going back to college myself to do graphic design. And my tutor introduced me to somebody that had their own web design company, and it took off from there, me working as a graphic designer at web companies. And I really loved it because I was getting to use my artistic side and, play with colors. And at first it was kind of like pinch me, is somebody really paying me to do this? And I enjoyed it so much. But over the years, it kind of faded, that spark for it. And at the time, I didn't know anything about mindset. All I knew was, I wasn't happy. And as we know, like the brain, when it hasn't got all the information, it tries to fill in the blanks itself and just comes up with a reason. So I came up with the reason: I need to make things with my hands. I need to make physical things in the world. So I went into jewelry design. So I was doing it for a bit while I was at my day job and beavering away on the train every day with designs and learning all about new materials, taking a course in silver making and doing all of this. And eventually I was made redundant because my company was bought out and moved. And I thought, that's it. I made the decision I wasn't going to be a graphic designer anymore. And I became a jewelry designer. And at first, again, it was great because I had my jewelry on the catwalk. I got it into a favorite shop of mine. It even appeared in a magazine. And on the surface, it was all great. But again, it ebbed away and it was quicker this time. So then I found myself floating around, from job to job, trying to find out what was missing. And it took me an incredibly long time to realize it was all about me. It wasn't about the jobs per se. And that's when I decided to train as a hypnotherapist because I'd had hypnotherapy myself as a teenager for exam stress. So it's something I knew a little bit about. So I don't know why, instead of going for hypnotherapy, I thought I am going to be a hypnotherapist.
Wow, went straight to it. Goodness.
Yeah, and it was really great actually because all of us doing the course, we were all practicing on each other all of the time. So you're getting the benefit yourself and you're learning the skills to help other people. And that set me off on my mindset journey from there into learning all these other things I didn't know about, mindfulness and breathing techniques, EFT, all kinds of different things that I didn't know about before. And that's when I decided I wanted to do that as my main work. And I started off just generally helping people with anxiety. but it took me a while to realize that anxiety is just everybody. If you've got a problem and you're not anxious about it, it's not really a problem. So I thought I need to, be a bit more specific, because I was helping people for weight loss, people that were feeling sort of depressed at work, sports performance. It was kind of a bit haphazard, all over the place. And it's only been in more recent times, since we've had COVID and all that time, to think, and reflect the way people might not have done before. I've thought about my journey and how I've got to where I am, and realized what was up, in the first place, what was wrong. And it was all about, I really loved doing design. I really enjoyed that, but it was all the other things that go with it. All the having to come up with designs, all of the time, the deadlines, having everybody's opinions, because everybody has an opinion about design. Like in a company, everybody will have an opinion. And working for hypercritical bosses that would like gather the whole company around to like critique your work, and having to pitch. And when I was doing jewelry design myself, having to reach out to shops, and all those things that they don't teach you when they teach you about design. And it was those kind of pressures, those stresses, that anxiety that had led me along this path. So I thought that's what I would like to help other people with, because they know they want to have a business and they've got the design skills, and they go and do the business courses, but still there's that anxiety there, because nobody teaches them how to deal with that. Like particularly these days, when you've got to get out there on social media, show your voice, show your face, people hear your voice, and those sort of things. And there's a lot of artists that like, just my voice, I don't want to use my voice, or do I have to go on as well as, showing my paintings? And it's kind of new territory for people who are used to sort of like being on their own, being engrossed by their passion, in their flow. And now they've got these other things to deal with that they want to do, but they have a lot of, anxiety about it.
As you said, it's a fine balance, really, isn't it, between following your passion and making money from it. And then there is a kind of a tipping point where the passion then becomes untenable as a business, because you spend too much time on the thing that you're creating, for example. So if you're an artist and you spend maybe a day on a painting, but you can only charge 2 hours equivalent of time for it, or something like that. So do you help them with all those kinds of things as well, the business side of things, or is it just purely the mind attitude approach?
More on the mindset side, and helping them with overwhelm, and also breaking down projects and goals and things like that. It's like I have had someone who, she was really struggling with her social media, like the content, what do I put? I don't know what to put. And really it wasn't about that. She'd read information about that, she'd taken courses, but what it was really about was trusting herself, and taking that time out, to have like 5 minutes to herself each day, to listen to the bird song, stand in the garden and just be still and trust herself. And that was just the little intervention that she needed to get going with her social media, because she knew really, but it was just like that, that overwhelm of it all.
There's this thing, isn't there, that we hear often, the answers are within, and we have got the answers, but as you say, the lack of trust, the overwhelm, what will people think of us, and who do you think you are, and all these nagging voices that come to us. So how do people find you, Rachel?
Through my website predominantly. That's rachelgoth.com.
And can you spell that for the benefit of the listeners who can't see you on screen?
That's R for Rachel, ACHELGOTH.com.
Marvellous. Okay. And what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking maybe of making the transition to turn their hobby into a business? What would be the top tips you would suggest?
I would suggest that they take time. They make sure they keep taking time to themselves, because it's easy to let your self-care slip. And you only have really 5 hours a day of your higher brain function, because it takes up so much energy. And if you're wasting that time feeling anxious and stressed, you have even less time to do your work. So it's really important, and it saves you time taking that time out to care for yourself. And another tip would be side projects, because there are going to be times you have to make work, for other people, and it might not be quite the thing that you would want to make. So you need those side projects to keep that spark alive, to keep your interest going. And also doing something completely different, because that's where you don't get your inspiration from sort of head down in front of the screen or the piece of paper or the blank slate. So make sure you're getting out there, seeing exhibitions or reading the newspaper, reading books, just, a variety of input, to not forget that, because we can forget and sort of tunnel down on the task.
Absolutely. You mentioned 5 hours. When is the 5 hours that's productive? Is there a specific time of day, or does it differ for everybody?
It's not a specific time of day. It's just that they sort of, there's 3 layers of the brain: the lizard part, the mammalian part, and then the human part. The human part, the really high thinking brain, that's come later in our evolution. That part uses huge amounts of energy. So you only have about 5 hours a day of that. So the thing is to take breaks through the day, because when you find yourself staring off through the window for a minute and you think, stop doing that. That's actually you taking a natural break. And if you can take 5 or 10 minutes every hour, when you find that, that you're starting to wander, when your mind's starting to wander, just having that little deliberate break, and then you come back refreshed. Like the way some people use the Pomodoro Technique, the tomato timer, like the kitchen timer, to work in short periods, because you just can't keep that level of concentration up, and you'll think you're being productive. It'll feel, I had a really busy day. But when you look back, you won't have achieved that much.
Yeah, busy doing nothing.
Yeah, don't feel guilty for taking breaks. It's essential.
When you say Pomodoro, again, for the benefit of the listeners who have not come across that word, can you just describe that, and why would they use a kitchen timer?
It's called Pomodoro because it's just one of those little kitchen timers that looks like a tomato, and it's set for, I think it's I'm not sure how on the periods exactly. I think it might be 25 minutes or something like that. But you set it and then you work for that amount of time, and then when the alarm goes off, you just have a little break. So it just gets you working in those short, productive periods.
Cool. So you're breaking the 5 hours up effectively in manageable chunks.
Yeah, because you can't concentrate for the whole 5 hours, because your brain goes through, cycles through brain waves kind of thing, where you're more sort of conscious and then you sort of drift away, a bit more dreamy kind of thing. So when you get into that dreamy bit, when you notice that, have a little break. Or as I say, some people find the timer useful.
Cool. That's a good idea for all of us. What type of clients do you deal with? Have you got a particular regular type of client that comes to you? Are they, what sort of art or makers are they?
It's all kinds of different things, really. A lot of visual things, like people doing graphics and publishing, people making there's a lot of digital downloadable graphics now, people selling through Etsy shops, that kind of thing. And also people writing as well, people writing their own books, people painting, all kinds of different things, really.
Interesting. So remind us of your website again, please, Rachel.
It's rachelgoth.com. So that's RACHELGOTH.com.
And presumably you're on social media somewhere or another.
I'm on TikTok, actually, as rachgoth.com, RACHGOTH.
Cool. I don't know anything about TikTok. I get sent things, but it all seems a bit flim flam to me as an old person. I thought, goodness me, people doing silly things. So is it a serious thing, or have I misunderstood it?
It's about training the algorithm. When you first go on, you will get lots of people like dancing kind of thing. But as it gets to know you, as you do searches, then you get more of the information that you want. And there's a lot of people now on TikTok who are over 30 and older. The main age is getting older. And there's a lot of artists and that on there because of the format, because it is, short video. And most videos are only a minute or 3 minutes, so you can see a lot of things in a short amount of time.
Right, cool.
Check out.
Okay, I can't see me rushing over there at my grand old age. So thank you so much, Rachel Goth, mindset coach for artists and makers, for talking to us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Elaine.